And today's guest is my brother boy, Andrew Gillies. How are you, my friend?
Well, mate, how are you? It's been a while. Been a whole minute.
It's great to have you, my man, and thanks for joining me fresh off a weight session.
Yeah, actually, I train every morning, so I've been there at 4:30 this morning, so I've been awake for a while. But yeah, what about yourself? You have a gym session this morning, Troy? Or?
Yeah. No, definitely. Look, I've got a couple of off days up my sleeve because I've been going so hard at it. Around 2010, I went too hard, and got a little bit too big and just a little bit too advanced. So I've just been taking a few days off. It's another rest day today, by the way.
Yeah.
And another cheat day, which is good. I really enjoyed cheat days.
Yeah, you need them, don't you?
Oh, you need them. You know what it's like. You know what it's like. Hey, big boy. You know what it's like.
You were there back in 2010, didn't you?
They shouldn't call it a cheat day.
No, they shouldn't.
Call it a just a rest day. Just cheating's too attractive.
Yeah, it is, but it kind of goes to a pretty important point, right? Which is that, if you're having one day off a week, it's frequency that matters. It's not necessarily doing everything perfect. It's doing it good most of the time. So I think that's probably a good segue into talking about mental health anyway, isn't it?
Oh yeah. You're running the show. I can go off. I can do the dishes. I can do the dishes if you want and catch up with a few things.
No, I'm in your hands. So whatever you want to talk about. If there's anything you want to ask me or.
Yeah, no, consistency. So tell us, did you notice you weren't doing weights as consistent or as deliberate when I met you? What's your journey been like that's gone from weights to weights for mates? And
Back when I met you, I was actually competing professionally for sailing. So I had sort of a weight limit that I could get to. So I was training, but I was training more for a sport as opposed to weights. And then I found, as a lot of guys do, I think, when you come out of, the very rigid environment of school where you know what you've got to do, a lot of people go to university, some people do a trade, whether at trade school, you've got this very rigid structure that's sort of given to you or prescribed to you. But when guys come out of that, they don't have that structure in their lives. And I think, there's a bit of an issue with identity where guys don't really know how to go about their lives. They don't know what structure they have. They've been told what they need to do all their lives, and then they don't really know how to do it themselves. So that's where, after training for sport for a long period of time, I sort of came out of that and I thought, oh, shit, what do I do? And weights was the best way for me to manage it because the gym's open 24/7. I can train whenever I want to. There's a bit of a social aspect to it too. It's a little bit different to team sports, but because of work, I actually couldn't get to training at 6 o'clock. So, it was just a logical sort of pathway for me. And then after training a little bit more and sort of getting more into the weights, I took up powerlifting more seriously and then met Josh, my co-founder. So you did remember his name.
Was it Josh? Did I say it right? Did I say Josh in that little...
Josh. You said Josh. You said a few other names, but you got Josh. And so, Joshy and I started this sort of a while ago now, back in 2016, I think. It was just about us having issues with our mental health. And, it's really important, I think, to define that as, health is not the absence of sickness. People think, just because, you don't just go to the doctor just to sort out a problem. Sometimes it's about preventing things from happening as well, or like an apple a day approach sort of thing. And I think too often there's this massive sort of stigma that surrounds mental health, where people say, it's not a focus on being healthier. It's a focus on, if I've got an issue, I'll address it. But if I don't have an issue, I'm fine. And that's sort of changing now. But I think particularly for men, it's very much been a thing that's been swept under the rug and never really dealt with. And so, Josh and I realized that through our struggles with mental health and, some of the challenges we were facing in our lives that, the gym and powerlifting and the sessions we had, we'd sort of sit around for a while after it and just chat about things. And that really helped both of us. And we thought, why don't we extend this to help other guys and help other people, because it really did sort of help us work through our own issues. And, that's really the sort of the nexus or sort of the thing that started it for us. And we just sort of kept going with it. And then I guess the focus was always and has always been for us to keep it small. We really wanted to make sure that the focus remained on actually helping people and making sure that, you know, it was very much a community-based thing. You know, we didn't want to, I guess I'll phrase this a different way. We've had a lot of pressure from people to make it big, like make it as big as we possibly can. But, you know, we don't want to touch as many people as possible. We want to actually offer, you know, a quality solution that helps people in the community. And we don't want our faces on on papers or anything like that. In fact, we kind of try and avoid it. I mean, we didn't want to, you know, the article that was published in The Age sort of became a little bit too much about us and not about what we did.
Yeah.
And that was frustrating for us, but we also recognize, you know, there's a branding aspect to it and all that sort of, it's a bit of garbage as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, that's sort of a pretty good and a bit waffly, but that's how the journey started, and we've just sort of kept going from there.
And so tell us what a typical session is like for someone that was to attend Weights for Mates, and what's the general process of, give us a couple of, obviously keeping it anonymous, give us a couple of case examples of who contacts you, what situation are they in, and then what can you provide?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I'll preface sort of the session by is say, we have no idea what people have got going on in their lives. And a lot of the time people won't tell you, or they will tell you, but they won't necessarily tell you exactly what's going on. We don't know what we don't know. We're not psychologists. We're just a bunch of blokes that want to help people. And so what we do is we get a psychologist that actually helps us. His name's Daniel Chamrabi, and we've had other people help us as well that are psychologists. And basically we do an assessment, the same as what a doctor would do, a K10 assessment at the start of a session to see how people are feeling. Basically, it just measures sort of levels of general distress and things like that. It's not too onerous. And they'll do it at the same time as signing up, so giving us their details and that sort of thing. That happens sort of just before the session. The session starts, and generally a typical session will focus on one powerlifting movement. So that'll be a squat, a bench, or a deadlift. And then, you know, we'll take them through the technique that's associated with that lift, give them some cues, some actual proper coaching, which a lot of the times beneficial just in a physical sense. Like there's a certain catharsis that's associated with lifting weights. There's a repetitive nature to it, which, as you said before, is a mindful sort of exercise. You're going through, you have to focus on what you're doing. But there's also some sort of more longer term and not as explicit benefits as well to doing that. Which I'll sort of touch on a little bit later. But, you know, when we're doing that session, we're focusing on the technique. And then once we focus on the technique, we have what you said before, basically just a general chat. And that chat will focus on, you know, it could be a topic. So generally it'll be depression, anxiety, and social support, or where people can go for help if they need it. And we keep these discussions largely unstructured because guys don't like homework. We're not trying to tell people what to do. In fact, I recognize, and Josh recognizes as well, a lot of the time if you give people advice, especially if it's instructional advice, like so many people give it, they say, this is what you should do because this is my situation and therefore I understand everything in your life. It's not the way the world works, and it's certainly not the way that guys think. So we frame it differently. It's about, if you notice these things in your mates, these are ways that you can help them. So it's sort of a gentler gateway into getting guys to think about their own mental health by getting them to think about their mates and what might be going on in them. And they say, oh, well, hang on a second, maybe I'm going through that as well. And where can I get help? And how can my mates help me? And so it's about building that community. And we thought we'd break that by making it too big. Maybe we're wrong, but we genuinely think that, you know, keeping it small and really trying to offer sort of a quality solution that Josh and I, we want to give our time, you know, rather than sort of donating to a charity that we don't know where it goes and we're paying CEOs and all that sort of garbage. We just wanted to offer our time. And so that's what we do. And, you know, hopefully it helps people. Do you want any specific examples? I mean,
go on. Yeah. I think you're going narrowing down to as much info as how it's going, and go for it. Like, obviously keep it anonymous, but tell us a nice range of. Go for it.
Yeah, so I mean, we have people contact the Facebook page. We got people. One was a father of 3, suicidal. You know, people who've got some really serious sort of battles going on. You know, men who've got. I mean, obviously, suicide in men is it's one of the largest killers of young men in this country, and it's a horrible statistic. But it's also really important to frame, I think, men's mental health in the context of the broader community. Like, we have people who have issues with social violence, people who have issues with domestic violence. And, yeah, criminalizing those actions is right. You shouldn't be hurting other people in society, but these people also need help. These are people that, you know, are hurting other people. And I think it's a phrase that I certainly use a lot is hurt people, you know. These are people that really need to deal with their own issues and look in the mirror and find tools and get ways to actually help themselves. So an example of that is, you know, we've had someone who's been, and obviously not naming names and trying to keep it as confidential as possible. Yeah, they've been suicidal. They're relatively young. They come from a bit of a broken home, and you know, we've helped them. It's not necessarily that we've helped them by offering them a really high level of care and talking to them all the time, but our goal is to give them the tools. So what we do is we've spoken to him and said, you know, come down to a session. He's shown some interest. He's come to a couple of sessions, worked through a bench session, deadlift session, squat session as well. Been coming for a couple of weeks. And he started to develop an interest in his own mental health and started to identify things in himself that perhaps he hasn't noticed before, and said, okay, well, you know, maybe I am exhibiting those traits, or maybe there are ways to make myself better. And Josh especially has been very good at sort of walking him through ways that he can help himself, put him in contact with a psychologist, and really broken down the stigma in this young man about the fact that, you know, it's not something you should be ashamed of to get help. You know, in fact, it's something you should be proud of. And it's something that I feel really passionately about, because I think that even in the context of, you know, think about, you know, absenteeism at work, you know, violence against women. These are men's health issues as well. Like, if men were healthier, if men were not in a position where they felt like they had to lash out, you know, that would benefit the whole of society. And I think, you know, we're starting at the root cause rather than trying to punish the symptom. And so that's, I guess, a bit of a more specific story that hopefully relates back to the general concept.
I've got some questions. Unfortunately, you can't see the chat room. We've got, you know, a couple of good morning fellas, great chat. I'll just read them off the top. Where are these sessions at the moment, or where were they before?
Before COVID.
Old mate Rona. Old mate Rona turned up for a session.
So Josh works out of a gym called Training Day, both in Burwood and in Clayton in Melbourne. So we run the sessions out of there, and Wayne, the owner, has been incredibly supportive of this, helps us use the space for free. And obviously, like, we'd love to run these sessions in other places as well, but that's been a really good space for us. But if you do want any more specific details, probably inbox through the Facebook page, or the Instagram account, probably the best way to get in contact.
You talked just then about, and I hope this is what I got was right, you mentioned that this young fella that you're talking about in particular rocked up, started doing gym training, and he hadn't yet got to the stage of the evening or afternoon or session where a mental health expert came in and spoke. He identified these things during the weight session.
Yeah, so...
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I really want to try and change people's perception, especially people that go, I'm not going to the gym doing all that hard big boy stuff. And like, there is genuine mental health related opportunities within doing those basic core weights that aren't fun to watch, and they're certainly not fun to do. I've done a deadlift before. I didn't walk for a week. I did not walk for a week, and I couldn't do my shoelaces up for a week.
Yeah.
But there is core principles about it. Let us know about those.
100%. So I think it's really important there's a phrase that Josh and I use a lot, which is we take concepts that guys are familiar with. Like, most guys play sport, some don't. We're not for everyone, but most guys play sport. They play footy, rugby, soccer, tennis, whatever. We take concepts that they're familiar with, so physical training, and use those concepts as the conduit to teach them about concepts they're unfamiliar with, like their mental health, right? Because essentially, you can train your physical health in the same way you train your mental health, and vice versa, right? So what you're referring to there is sort of the explicit benefit of weight training. You know, they're hard. Yeah, they're hard. Yeah. The barbell doesn't lie to you. It doesn't change. It's the same weight, right?
Yeah.
Put more on. But when I said before that I would touch on some of the more like sort of longer term benefits of the sessions and how they work, is we put guys, eventually we'll program them. We'll give them a program where they'll be going over, you know, setting goals. And so you're going through a 12-week program where you got 4-week training blocks. You got meso goals, you got micro goals, which are sort of the small things, and then the macro ones, like the big one. So we'll sit down and actually go through a goal setting exercise with these guys. And that's a tool that they can take to their general life. Like essentially the physical training and the programming they're doing is a microcosm for how they can view, goal setting, positive mental health traits. And like I said before, it's not just, oh, I've got depression, I've got anxiety. I think that too often these diagnoses are so reductive, right? Like you can be depressed without having depression. You can be anxious without having anxiety.
Yes.
You don't have to label yourself or put yourself in a box. You're just a young bloke who might be trying to find his way in the world, and perhaps weight training is a great way for you to get access to, some of these concepts you're not familiar with.
I mean, I saw it firsthand being next to that gym, the Doherty's gym, for a fair few years. And I will say, and this is a very general observation, but a lot of the people that found a home at, in particular, Doherty's gym, you could sense and see visibly that they didn't fit into what the world wanted them to fit in or needed them to fit in, or that there seemed to be what we call the misfits, or there was a lot of, and I saw dramatic improvement. But they found, like, the deadlift crew. They'd get there on Monday mornings, 5 a.m. with 15 other people. But what the beautiful thing that I realise is, and you're triggering this reminders again, is there was so much encouragement, and people were coming in just starting with the deadlift crew, and some people were deadlifting epic amounts. But the person that's up next is as important as supported. The little weeny little 5-cent coins under the dead bell bar, and they're not going like which blokes can do.
Yeah, 100%.
Go, oh, what, you can't even finish your pint, or oh, you're weak. Like, you're always weak. Like being called weak for a man is a stinger, and we are so guarded about it. Going, I'm tough, but you go to the deadlift morning crew.
Yeah.
You can't go up to the level, but I always remember there was so much like, come on, buddy, get it up, come on. Like, there was complete acceptance, and that's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, that's a really great point, and that's something that Josh and I really have tried to change, because you're right, that bro or gym culture to us is, it actually, to me, it's a sign of weakness. Like, if you're trying to put someone else down to make yourself better, you're not really doing anything to help anyone, right? You're just relatively making yourself feel better, but it doesn't help other people. People view you negatively because of it. And that's what we really try and do. Josh and I both have been powerlifters for a long time, and we're relatively strong ourselves. We're not setting the world on fire or anything like that. But I think it's really helpful for people who haven't trained to see us actually train with them, be ridiculously strong, and then talk about real battles in our lives, and be comfortable being vulnerable. Because there's this liberation that comes with the idea that, you don't care if someone judges you if you're open about it. And now you don't have to go into specifics and tell people about everything that's going on in your life, and different personalities deal with things differently. But I think just being able to share that with someone in the same way that Josh and I had that little sort of experience back when we were training, all those years ago, that's what we try and recreate, is just this real authentic honesty, not just with others, but with ourselves. And so, I think it's a really sometimes damaging concept where people are talking down about other people in terms of their weight training and things like that. And we just try and remove that bro or locker room talk and that sort of stuff, and just try and change the perception of guys in terms of not just how they talk about others, but themselves too.
Yeah. True. Oh, I love it. Men's society needs a real shakedown, and it's beautiful to iron out some of these. And women may not know about how serious it is and how much of an issue it is when you catch up with your mates. Sometimes the build-up can be just like, I don't want to hang out with these guys. They're good. I've been mates with them for a long time, but man, they're just kind of killing the vibe, and there's no progression, and it's the same thing, and it's 15 years. We catch up. Bucko's smacking in the back of the head. This one's talking about how much he hates his missus. This one's just sitting there wanting to drink till very, very quickly to get the most drunk, and it's not healthy. So I love that the gym, and you've just tweaked it a little bit to take it away from the stigma of the gym, finding your own space and keeping the group small. I think it's super impressive, mate. And I've got an example here. I want to talk about this one as well. There was a photo of a woman in one of the pictures on your Facebook. Is this open? Weights for Mates could sound like it's just for men, and I know we're talking about mental health for men. Is it? And we've got Karen. Karen, shout out to you who's chatting on the chat right now. She just said, "Sounds amazing. I wish that I could go."
Yep.
Are you open to women?
Yeah. So at this stage, we've been trying to bring women through and looking for someone to actually run a women's program in the same vein. Because Josh and I don't profess to understand women's issues. We're not women. We don't know them, and I think it would be remiss of us to pretend like we do, right? So what we are actually actively looking for is for a young woman who understands women's issues and wants to actually help other women to sort of run the same sort of program under the Weights for Mates banner, but have a female initiative too. And yeah, I think one thing that I haven't mentioned that I probably should have is this is not designed to be easy, right? It's hard, but so is life. And so often we create all these safe spaces, and to the extent that we're creating a safe space to talk, we're not trying to protect everyone from the world. Like, this is about, to quote David Goggins, sort of callousing your mind in a way. You said weightlifting's hard. You're right, it is. But there's a lot of things in life that are hard. And, I truly believe that happiness is the intersection of pleasure and purpose, right? You can't just be a hedonist and go out and drink with your mates every Friday like you're referred to. If you go playing footy's great for you because of the social aspect and you get some exercise in. But sometimes doing stuff that's hard and achieving something and hitting those goals is really beneficial. And it does, I find personally, if I don't have a purpose or have a goal, I feel lost. Yeah. And to go back to that point I said earlier about structure, I think it's really important to have that. And sometimes in terms of the personality differences by gender, men and women, we are, as I said before, looking for someone who really understands women's issues and maybe goals that women might have to start to run a program in the same vein, but just more tailored to the female sort of mindset and personality and run something like that.
How's the future looking for Weights for Mates? Obviously a little quiet time at the moment, but what do you look forward to over the next 6 to 12 months? Yeah,
so Josh and I are really focused on just getting programs up and running again. Like, we love doing it. We love doing it on the weekend. It's a great way to spend our Sunday, and we really revel in helping people because we know the difference that it made in our lives, but we also never want to lose sight of it. So we never want to lose sight of the fact that we are going to be small. We're not going to be having 5 programs a day. We're not going to run it in big box gyms. It's just going to be sort of a local initiative that we keep local. And, if someone really comes to us and wants to grow it and can give us an idea for, ways to sort of teach the teachers or coaches in sort of running sessions that are similar, that'd be something we're interested in. But for the moment, the next 6 months is just about getting these programs back up and running. Now all the restrictions are off gym. Josh and I are just in planning for the next sort of block of training, getting some more people to come through, and then, just hitting our straps again.
Do you keep in touch with the people that come through the program? Is there like a network and stuff? Because I'm sure a lot of them would miss you guys.
Yeah, so it's funny. We actually, it's one of those things where we let people get in contact with us. I think, sometimes we have guys that really do have some battles that they're going through, and, we treat ourselves as coaches or a resource. We don't hold people's hands because that's not good for them in the long run. Right. It's not good for us to be going and contacting people out of the blue. We're obviously mates with a couple of guys that come through the sessions and we'll talk to them then. But we're also mindful of the fact that, we need to keep this at a level where it's sustainable for Josh and I in terms of our time. We both have full-time jobs. So it's just an initiative that, we sort of set out from the start, having this focus of, creating a community where guys can actually talk to each other. Yeah. It's not just about getting in contact with Josh and I, but, make some more mates, come down, have a session and make mates that you can talk to about real things, right? Not just the girls you're seeing, not just, footy on the weekend, but actually talk to them, because that's something I think women have that men don't really have in this country.
I agree.
They just don't have the ability to talk through their issues before they get really bad. And a lot of the time, the chat that surrounds them is so negative. It's like, harden up, you're being a pussy.
Yeah. Or you can tell that it's a diluted story.
Yeah,
Like
you
they've
can.
almost talked about it. It's like, oh yeah, oh mate, and you go, how's the weekend, man? How's your week? Yeah, not bad, not bad. Just a couple of issues at work, but nothing major. What about you, man? You just it's
Yeah.
probably like you literally probably had a fight with someone, or you're about to get fired, and you're financially stuffed. That's what
Yeah.
you meant, but no one goes, hang on. Before we kind of go round circle here, Jono, tell us a little bit more. What happened at work? No one does that bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's frowned upon to ask people real questions as well.
Yeah.
Which is strange, because showing a genuine interest in your mate should be something that's celebrated.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, it's a funny one. The other thing in the next 6 months that we're doing, which I forgot to mention, is we've got these diaries or planners that Josh and I have set up. I was actually just filling it out before. These ones here. Just sort of, it's got a couple of things in there that Josh and I have both found really useful in terms of mental health. It's backed by the research and a lot of literature. Just around a planner for guys in terms of their mental health, not like a to-do list or anything like that, but some little things like gratitude journaling and a lot of stuff that's actually really useful and has made a difference for us. And then some other things like, a life balance tracker and some resilience building exercises and that sort of thing. But very much tailored towards men. And we've also got we're doing some merchandise and that sort of stuff. Just trying to raise a couple more funds to run programs. We'd love to buy our own equipment, eventually get our own space. But these things take time.
Yeah, it's nice, man. I think it's so beautiful. I truly do. And you touch on a couple of pillars that I can walk away with personally, just dealing with mates. I don't think I fall into the. So it's easy to go, nah, that's not me, it's me. But there is some things that is me, and I'm definitely. It's because I'm a male, and I'm thankful for the mates that I have got, and even you, man. Like when I met you and Gus and what's the other guy with the hairiest legs on the planet?
Oh, Sambo.
You guys were refreshing. I mean, you were kind of 17, 18 years old, but the friendship that you boys had, in particular in what you're talking about, I believe was really genuine. And there was moments you come into my cafe and talk. It's always genuine. So I'm glad that you are there saying these things, but also are a good example of it, because there's nothing worse than showboating blokes telling people that they're doing all these things and it doesn't fit. It just does. You go, whoa. I don't think that's the real story there, buddy.
Yeah, well, that's and that goes to the heart of what we're trying to do. Is just that it's not about grandstanding.
Yeah,
it's about staying humble and just helping people. And if we always set out with the idea and sort of the mantra that if we help one person, then we've done something good. And that's just what we're trying to do. We're not trying to, we actually actively don't want our name in lights. We don't want any of that stuff. We just want a small community run program that hopefully makes a difference in a couple of blokes' lives.
Well, I have to admit, this show isn't quite Fox FM, but I'm so glad that
not yet. Not yet.
It might be now. Now.
Right.
No, we've had about 25 to 15 to 30 listeners popping in and out over the last half an hour. So hopefully there's some people out there that and a great way that the one thing I'm taking from this is the way you approach things could be it's very indirect. I love the indirectness. That's something, a little thing in my head. You can talk to them about, hey, if you've got any mates that but you're actually talking a little bit about them, but you say, if you want to help any people kind of help out with any game, you should, just let them know. I love that.
Yeah, it's a really good way, right? Because, if you've got something to say, you've got to think about who you're saying it to.
Yes.
And you think about the challenges in them, not just listening to you, but really hearing you. And so that's what we've sort of done. I mean, we've thought it through pretty well. We've had a while to work on it, and we found a solution that works for us. And the best thing about it is it translates into our real lives as well.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that goes to the heart of the initiative, right? That's what it's about. It's about, making small changes that make big differences. Like if you're in the middle of the Pacific, the difference, and you're a ship, the difference between sort of 15 degrees could be Africa and America, right? And that's the thing, if you're making a decision early on in your life when you're 23, 24, what difference does that make when you're 50?
It's spot on, man.
Yeah.
I'm super encouraged, and you are on the front line of what a current day male should look like, Gillies. Thank you so much.
I don't know about that, mate, but I'm doing my best.
Show us your quads. Show us your quads. Nah, I'm joking. Don't.
Not today. Maybe next time.
Do they need a bit of sun? Or are they as white and pasty as ever?
No, we're getting a bit of sun. I can work from home now, so I get a bit of time at the beach every day. It's lovely.
Hey, I've just put up a link also directly to the Facebook page. But if you didn't see the link, anyone, just type in weights for mates, not weights as in waiting for a mate. That guy, that funny YouTube guy waiting for a mate. It's Weights, WEIGHTS, and we've been talking to Andrew Gillies, co-founder of Weights for Mates, and shout out to Josh too for contributing to today's show and giving us some content. And great yarn, man. I appreciate your time.
I really appreciate you having me on, mate. Thanks very much.
And I'm just going to play a little song that I think is going to be absolutely beautiful. What do you think about this one?
Love it. You're going to change that.
Thanks, brother. We'll speak to you soon.